Hello my sweet loves, so I am currently in week 1 of the Artist's Way. I also have multiple sclerosis and autoimmune disease, so I've been finding that my process with the Artist's Way has been a little bit different because I am also navigating energy dips, chronic fatigue, and all the things that come with MS while also trying to get through the Artist's Way. So I have been adapting some of the practices just so that they fit more within my life and make more sense with me. So I'm going to share some of that with you. So the first thing that I have been adapting is the morning pages. When I wake up, I usually feel like I have a little bit of chronic fatigue. So one of the first things that I found that I've been struggling with, and as a result have adapted, has been the morning pages. Because I have MS, I often find that I feel super different depending on the day when I wake up. And so not every day I have the energy to do the morning pages. Instead, what I like to do, which has been a beautiful non-negotiable for me, is to get outside first thing in the morning. There's lots of scientific studies that 30 minutes in the sun with your eyes to the sun first thing in the morning is super beneficial for people who struggle with insomnia, chronic fatigue, low energy levels, all sorts of things. And so that is more my non-negotiable. If I have the energy, I'll get into my morning pages while I'm outside in the sunlight. If not, I'll take it a little bit more slow, drink some tea. Sometimes I also love to go for a morning walk, especially on the days that I'm feeling super anxious or I have low energy. Something about just going for a gentle walk I find really gives me that burst of energy that I'm craving. And so after those kinds of practices like morning sunshine, a morning walk, or even a morning meditation, depending on how anxious I am, if I'm needing a little bit of self-soothing energy, after those practices, I like to get into my morning pages. That is just what works for me and what I find is really beneficial, balancing living with MS as well as trying to get through the Artist's Way. In order for me to be consistent with anything in my life, I like to romanticize the process and I like to make the experience pleasurable and enjoyable. So I like to do this with everything in my life, from working out to going on walks. I always like to make it a pleasurable and enjoyable experience so that I want to keep coming back to the practice. And that's just how I personally stay consistent with things that I would like to do. So for example, when it comes to working out, I'll get a cute workout set. When it comes to going for a walk, I like to make myself an iced matcha or go to a beautiful park. I always like to make it a romantic, pleasurable experience so that I want to keep going back to it. So like I said, the morning pages has been a little bit difficult for me to get fully into just because I'm so set on the routine that makes me feel good in terms of my disease. And so because I've been living with an autoimmune disease for some time, I already know what works for me and what makes me feel the healthiest in my morning routine. And so morning pages first thing hasn't really worked out for me, and I haven't really been enjoying it when I wake up first thing and get into that. And so I've just adjusted the practice to work for me and for my lifestyle at this point in my life. So this is my copy of The Artist's Way. It's a beautiful copy. I've had it for some time, and since I have done my morning walk and got some sunlight, I thought it would be wonderful to get into the morning pages. Like I said, I love to make anything that I'm doing in my life romantic and pleasurable. And so when it comes to sticking with the morning pages, I found that what works best for me is to make a delicious cup of my anti-inflammatory tea. I've shared this recipe in so many videos, but it's a bulletproof anti-inflammatory tea and I absolutely adore it. So there's coconut oil in here, honey, turmeric, all the good things. This is a chai and it is so divine. So I like to do this every morning, make a delicious cup of tea, a matcha, whatever works for me. And then again, I will make the process of the morning pages super romantic. And romanticizing your life is how you're going to stick to new habits and form new rituals. It is now a little bit later in the day, and I am going to move on to the next part of the artist's way. So I have made myself a delicious cup of cacao. Cacao is one of my favorite plant medicine, plant teachers. I have been working with Mama Cacao for so long, and I absolutely adore her healing medicine. I love to work with Mama Cacao whenever I'm doing something like this. So whether it's the artist's way, yoni eggs, yoni steams, anything that I want to kind of access the deeper emotions and have some kind of support while I'm doing it. Mama Cacao offers that kind of spiritual mother essence, but she also allows you to go really deep into your subconscious to uncover those messages or those things that you are kind of hiding. So much of the artist's way is all about going inside yourself to your blocks, the things that are blocking you on your creative journey, and those are really deep stuff, and we have to be willing to go there so that we can uncover it and so that we can see what is ruling our life. So the shadow, the unconscious, rules our waking life. So I like to work with cacao while I'm doing these sorts of things so that I can go really deep, but also so that I can find some healing while I'm doing all of this. She gives me that nurturing, that support, but also allows me to go super deep. So I'm going to sip on my cacao and I'm going to work through these journal prompts, and then I'll probably come back and share some of my thoughts with you. I think that a little bit later I'm also going to make a fire and just sit with myself and have more of like a spiritual kind of meditation while I work through these prompts. I think that it's always important to honor what comes up, but then also get a healing from what comes up. So if that means that you want to dance it out, whether that means you want to burn some of the things that were hurting you in the fire, so you write a list of things you would like to release. That's how I kind of approach any kind of healing work. I like to go deep, and then I also like to release so that I can live my life in an unblocked, beautiful, creatively liberated way. So that's my approach to the artist's way. I hope that you enjoy. Let's get into those deep, beautiful journal prompts. Did some yoga, and now it is the evening. I didn't manage to get to the journal prompts earlier today, so I'm going to do the journal prompts now, and I'm super excited to get into them. I'm going to heat up my cup of cacao that I made earlier, and I'm going to drink it while I do my journal prompts. So for this section of the artist's way, we're working through our creative monsters. And that is kind of like the people who have made you feel bad or judged you throughout your journey on your creative path. So maybe you had a school teacher who was really mean to you when you were younger, or maybe something terrible happened to you about your creativity, like people laughed at your artwork, or maybe your parents said that you would never make any money being an artist. So my monsters are my two school teachers. I obviously won't mention their names, but basically they made me feel like being creative and being artistic was lesser, and that like I wasn't intelligent. Like one of my teachers, actually they were both maths teachers, but one of them said something to me like, oh, well, you know, at least you're good at the arts. But she said it in a way that implied that I was really bad at maths, and that being good at the arts meant that I was less intelligent. And so I often really carried that. I think even my mom was quite judgmental of me when I was younger. Being artistic, I always felt like I was stupid or I wasn't intelligent. I'm currently doing my master's in English and pursuing academia. I graduated cum laude. I have done really well academically speaking, but I think that part of my motivation and drive for doing so well academically was because I knew that English was an artistic passion, especially fiction writing. Those are the arts. And so I felt like I had to be the best at those artistic things. And so that's why I've pursued academia so much. And I think that that's also why I've really tried to succeed in that academic way, so that I think that I can be accepted and seen as intelligent. And obviously I've worked through this a lot. I have done a lot of TBM work, which is to be magnetic. And in those you work through your blocks and you have meditations where you uncover all of these things. So none of this is particularly new to me. And I have done the artist's way in the past. I just didn't get very far in the artist's way. So I've done this section of journaling before. And so those things have kind of stayed the same. There hasn't been major shifts. But yeah, it's just interesting to kind of look at all these things that make you feel insecure about your art and your creativity. And I don't know, there's something about writing about them and really going there and experiencing what happened to you in the past as an adult, and just holding space for that you were when those people said those things. In To Be Magnetic, and this is why I feel really healed from all of this, there are meditations where you go to that kind of accident site and you recreate the memory. So for example, if a teacher was really mean to you about your creativity, you do a meditation where you go back in time and you either show up as your adult self and you step in and you say to your younger self, you are worthy, you are beautiful, you're creative, your creativity is magical, and all these kinds of good affirmations. Or you can literally change what that teacher said in your mind. So you go there and you create even a new teacher who says really kind things to you, and that kind of rewrites that old neural pathway so that you no longer operate from a low self-worth standpoint, but you actually have high self-worth. So that's kind of the work that I'm currently doing alongside the artist's way. The light has changed because the TV has come on. I have no idea why it came on. But anyway, so that's kind of the work that I've been doing and what I've been focusing on. And so yeah, it's been really nice to kind of do these journal prompts. It's really awesome. I absolutely love the artist's way. I also have this pretty little feather that I actually forgot that I had. I picked this feather up many years ago when I was with my ex-partner at a holiday, on a holiday with my ex-partner. I remember finding this like on a golf course, and so it's quite sweet to find it in this book, even though me and that person have broken up. So another really cool journal prompt that I'm super excited to be doing is imaginary lives. So basically Julia Cameron writes that you have to think of 5 imaginary lives for yourself where you are creative and you're pursuing these things. So I have a lot of different creative passions, and so I like to imagine myself as like a designer, an interior designer. That's one of my things. I also like the idea of being like a fashion photographer, or being like a little fashionista kind of person. And so we create these imaginary lives for ourselves. I know in this life I really want to be a writer and pursue writing and spirituality as my creative pursuits, but it's fun to imagine and envision yourself in all these different ways. I think it also just shows you how much is possible and how many lives you could potentially live, and to not hold yourself back. Through journaling and uncovering these imaginary lives, I think you can also incorporate things from those lives into your everyday life. So, for example, one of my imaginary lives is to be an interior designer. But I can do that in my everyday life. I can create curated, beautiful spaces for myself in my bedroom, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I absolutely love The Artist's Way. I am going to continue drinking my cacao, beautiful mama cacao. And yeah, I think I'm just gonna have a nice relaxing rest of my evening. I really want to have a bath and just do some more fun things. I think like with pursuing creativity, I'm also realizing how many things I enjoy and how many things are creative. For example, I love to read and I love to do astrology. And I think like often in the evenings you numb out with Netflix, which is amazing. I love to numb out with Netflix too. But sometimes you forget that there's also space to do fun activities that we often overlook. We often think that creativity needs to be this big thing, like finishing a book or finishing a painting, but sometimes it can be as simple as doing a little craft, doing a little drawing, spending your evening doing something fun instead of like just passively consuming, but also being like the creator. Often when we're just consuming other media, we're just being like a passive recipient of all these images coming at us. And I think it's also important to produce. So whether that is creating TikToks or Reels or YouTube videos or even sketching, drawing, doing fun little projects, I think that those are all ways that we can access our creativity. So this evening, I'm going to continue accessing my creativity. I'm going to have a nice bath, and then I think I'm going to play around, do some more journaling, maybe pick up like a little craft that I can do, something like that. I'm not entirely sure what I feel like doing, but definitely something that is creative and stimulating. So I have already gone on an artist date. I'm not sure if I have included that in the beginning of this video or if I'm going to include it here, but I just think it would be really cool to also show you my artist date. And I'm excited to have another artist date. Artist dates are my absolute favorite thing to do, and I like to treat so many things as an artist date, like sometimes just going to get a cup of coffee, going to browse the makeup section, maybe going to like a cool arts and crafts store. And those are things that you do typically once a week. But honestly, if you have more time for your artist dates, then please do that.
Looking through an hourglass, the changes of the riverbanks. How long does the present last? The future now will soon be past.
So I've just come back from my artist date today. I went to my favorite place in Cape Town, which is called Cork Bay, and I just looked around some stores, I had some lunch, and I worked on some poetry and my book. And it just felt really nice to kind of be creative without the expectation of producing something specific. I then walked around, I potted about, I looked in some stores, I got myself some ice cream, which was so amazing. Overall, I really loved the artist's date. I went through a really painful breakup last year, and so going on solo dates is something that I decided to start doing after that breakup, and so the artist date felt quite normal for me. I go on a lot of dates by myself. However, it was still nice to go out with the intention of it being an artist date, because then I treated it a little bit differently. The artist date, or the inner artist, has a lot to do with your inner child, nurturing your inner child, or the person within you that feels blocked from creativity. It's also about creating a sustainable creative practice, so that we're not just creating art when we feel emotional, when we feel heartbroken. A lot of writing, for example, is born from heartbreak, whereas Julia Cameron's work is really about creating a sustainable artistic practice. Part of that is nurturing your inner artist or your inner child, courting that little inner artist, taking them on dates, getting inspiration, and then using that within your creative process. It's also just about spending time with yourself. A lot of us neglect that part of ourselves, and so it's really beautiful to do that. A lot of the time we only date or court ourselves when we're in a relationship, and we often don't really do that just for ourselves, nurturing and giving to ourselves, doing things that we love to do, buying ourselves gifts, all that kind of stuff. So the artist date doesn't always have to be about spending money. You can also just go and look at a shop, you can go to a beach, you can go to a park. There's so many free things that you can do for your artist date. And then there are also things that you can use money for, like going to a museum, taking yourself out for a meal, buying yourself a book. I often like to just go and look at makeup, because that really lights my little inner artist child self up, and I love makeup and doing all those kinds of girly things. And so that always makes me feel really inspired and like I'm nurturing my artist self. I'm in the process of trying to finish my book, my cyclical living book, which I'm going to put on Kindle, and I'm super excited about it. I've really been working on it. I have a complete full draft that's already done, but now that I'm in the process of looking at that draft and really adding to it and making more substance and meat in the draft that I'm currently working on, it's just been a challenge to kind of find the creative energy to show up. I've also had a lot of health issues at the moment, and so I've been quite emotional, and I've been on a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. I think at the moment I really am craving that structure in order for me to finish this book. I need the structure, and I also need some more inspiration, especially creative inspiration. I am doing my master's in English. I am a writer, I'm a fiction writer, but I'm also a non-fiction writer. And so sometimes I find that the fun, the playfulness, and like the joy of creativity is taken out of my creative practice, because I do a lot of my creative practice for university marks. So recently I've kind of just felt like it isn't as magical as it once used to be. And so my hope with doing the Artist Way is that I can refine my magic and inspiration with creativity. And yeah, I'm just excited to continue the journey.